can manage in an open compound containing thousands of weak, weary, dispirited prisoners and a goodly number of sharp-eyed Japanese guards, I mentioned the thing closest to my heart. Steve.
Huh?
Have we a chance of escaping?
Escaping? Oh, maybe, Mac. I don't know. It can be done, I suppose.
What's the matter with you, man?
Huh? Oh, nothing. I don't know.
Hey, look. What's the matter?
Watch this.
Against the wall. American, stand at the wall. According to the laws of this camp, this sentence is carried out. 2 of your squad of 10 have escaped. The other 8 must die. Do you wish to be blindfolded, or do you have the courage to face the firing squad?
You got no right to do this to us.
Quiet!
I won't. I tell you, those 2 men did not escape. They were too sick to try it.
Quiet! Ichi! Neat!
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Wait a minute!
How dare you interrupt an action of the Imperial Japanese Army?
We found them. The 2 men you said escaped. They were so weak, they fell into the latrine ditch.
Where are they? Bring them here at once.
I can't. They're dead.
Lieutenant Colonel Melnick. I shall never forget a little vignette that met my eyes every day at Cabanatuan and again at another camp to which McCoy and I were later transferred, the one at Davao. Picture a man walking around a compound enclosed in barbed wire. He massages his fingers constantly as he walks and stops now and then to massage his toes. A Jap guard follows him with his eyes, a smile on his face. The man is suffering from beriberi and maybe scurvy as well. The pain in his joints and extremities is excruciating. Medicine is what he needs, but a balanced diet would help enormously. Fresh fruits and greenstuffs would do the trick. And out there in front of his eyes, greenstuffs and berries grow in abundance. But the barbed wire stands between. And the Jap guard stands and fondles his Tommy gun, a smile set thinly on his face. The Jap guards don't need those berries and greenstuffs, but the prisoner can't have them. You look at the poor devil's eyes as he passes you. You notice again the smile of the Jap guard, and you reflect that certain parts of the Orient have developed rare refinements of cruelty. Commander McCoy. Not long after my arrival at Cabanatuan, I walked one evening in the compound with Melnick. Poor wretches squatted everywhere within my sight, their starved bodies slumped over. Suddenly, I saw a familiar face. Say, Steve, isn't that gun over there? The chap sitting with that small group by the fence?
Yes, that's Gun.
Well, how long's he been here?
He got here a few days before you did.
He did? But why didn't you tell me he was here? You know we're friends.
Yes, I know, but you were so weak yourself when you arrived. I thought you ought to rest up a bit before meeting him.
No wonder Steve Melnick didn't want me to see Gun till I felt up to it. I looked down at this friend of mine, this man I'd known for years, and I felt ill. It was as though someone had thrown acid in his face, searing it, discoloring it, taking all the life out of it. The same was true of the other men with him. I looked at Gun, fascinated. I could only stammer, You look awful.
Why not? I was on the 10. I made the death march.
I was afraid to ask him about it. I sat down. Steve sat down. I tried to collect my thoughts and stared straight ahead towards one of the barracks. Good God!
Huh? Oh, you'll get used to that.
I had already become aware of the awful stench about the camp, but for the first time I noticed that outside of each barracks there was a neat row of bodies. Somehow I knew the bodies had been there for some time. Clouds of flies arose from them when groups of prisoners walked nearby.
Yeah, Mac, you'll get used to that.
But why don't they bury them?
They? You mean the Japs?
Well, then, why don't you bury them?
Gosh, Mac. You must have had a soft time of it till now. You don't know the Japs. They should bury them. They should let us bury them before their sight is seared and desecrated our souls. I tell you, you don't know the Japs, Mac. Why, before we came here, we spent some time at another hellhole, Camp O'Donnell. At least 2,200 men died there in 2 months that I know of. The Japs wouldn't bury them. The Americans and Filipinos were so weak there weren't enough healthy men to dig the graves. As a result, the camp became so littered with bodies that you could hardly tell the living from the dead. With all of that, all the running water around the camp became polluted, which made more sick, more dead.
Good God!
Oh, yeah, you can gasp. But there are thousands of American witnesses to tell the truth of what I'm telling you. Once we decided to stand in our rights as prisoners of war. We insisted on seeing the camp commander and complaining to him. I can hear the little bullfinch now, sticking out his mangy little chest and shouting,
I tell you this to your face, swine. I do not like Americans, and I do not care how many die, nor how they die.
No, Mac. You don't know the Japs. You don't know them. The dirty, stinking little... But I know them, Mac. These fellas here with me know them. We made the death march from Bataan.
And then Gunn told us about the death march.
Bataan fell on April 8th, Mac. The Japs took 10,000 Americans and 45,000 Filipinos prisoners. They marched to San Fernando, Pampanga, a distance of 120 miles. 120 miles. We were marched in different groups. We went without water for days at a time. We went without food for most of the time. I personally didn't have a bite for days. I don't know how many days. I lost count. But I know it was over a week. And then they gave me a mess kit of rice. Oh, we often passed running streams. The Japs seldom allowed us to drink. A few prisoners tried it. Mostly Filipinos. They were shot down, cold-blooded. Oh, yeah, the Japs didn't mind when we drank from muddy Carabao wallows, though. No, they liked to see us do that. That's where we got all the dysentery, I suppose. At the end of every day, Mac, the Japs dispatched those of us who looked too weak to make the march the following day. But they committed murder with a new twist. They made the condemned dig their own graves. And, brother, no matter how sick or wounded or near to dying you are, when a Jap with a sharp bayonet tells you to dig your own grave, you dig. How you dig? A Jap...
Shut up, Gun! Shut up! By
Can't stand it.
It was one of the kids who had made the death march with Gunn. Gunn passed him off casually, but without smiling. Gunn will never smile again.
Johnny doesn't like to think about it, gentlemen. But I can assure you on eyewitness testimony, a Jap with a helpless man in one hand and a bayonet in the other is a supreme artist. Just as if you didn't know.
I'll kill him. I'll kill every last one of them. The dirty white-livered
Sit down,
Quiet, quiet, Johnny. Quiet, boy. Do you want him to hear you? Oh, no. Try to forget it, son. Try to forget it.
I can't forget it, Commander. I can't.
Boy, shh. Then get it out of your system. Talk about it. And that's what he chose to do.
It happened a lot of times. But the first time it happened, I didn't know what was up. A prisoner had keeled over. He'd been stumbling for hours. The Japs dragged him out of the line to a ditch by the side of the road. And they took me out of line. They took me to where the poor guy was lying in the ditch. One of the Japs handed me a shovel. Another jabbed a bayonet in me and shouted an order in Japanese. I didn't know what they wanted. Then a Jap grabbed the shovel out of my hand and showed me. He threw a few shovels full of earth on the unconscious soldier. Then he handed me the shovel. Dear God, it doesn't help to tell myself that he was more dead than alive. The worst time was once when a poor guy with 6 inches of dirt over him suddenly regained consciousness and tried to sit up. He clawed away at the dirt, trying to save himself. Then the Jap bayonet struck me.
There are some stories which it is better not to finish. You're right, Mac. There are stories which it's better not to finish, at least not through a medium which is welcomed into the homes of a people raised in the principles of Christian charity. But don't think, America, that such stories as you've just heard are the outstanding examples of Japanese atrociousness. As a matter of fact, they are the least shocking of the hundreds we have caused to be printed or could tell. And the 513 men who were rescued from Cabanatuan the other night by the Rangers will undoubtedly have fresh horrors to add to the list. Unless the Japs have changed. But if your imagination fails you, think of the doings of the Nazis in the ghettos of Poland. Cast your minds back to the unholy times when tyrants impaled the heads of those who displeased them on the gateposts of their castles. Dwell upon the gentler arts and forms once practiced in the Inquisition torture chambers. Imagine the starvation of Athens, the filth and hopelessness of Devil's Island. Add all these up, you'll have a good picture of the Japanese treatment of American military prisoners in the Philippines. We were there. We know.
Tonight, inspired by the rescue last week by American Rangers of the last 513 prisoners of war in the notorious Cabanatuan prison camp, Words at War has brought you dramatic excerpts from the book 10 Escape from Tojo by Lieutenant Welburn Kelly. The radio script was prepared by Richard McDonough and featured Kenneth Danew as Commander McCoy, Ted Jewett as Lieutenant Colonel Melnick, and Ned Weaver as Gunn. The music was by William Meader, and the entire production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Words at War is brought to you in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime by the National Broadcasting Company and the independent stations affiliated with the NBC network. Jack Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Words at War. Middletown, USA, 1985. Listen. It is the sound of marching feet. What does it signify to you listeners?
They're probably soldiers, aren't they?
Yeah, what is it? A parade?
No, my friends, it is not a parade in the usual sense. These are not soldiers. The rhythmic tread you hear is being made by slaves.
Slaves? Did you say slaves?
In America? The United States of America? Impossible.
But listeners, this is the year 1985.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, presents another Words at War program. Tonight's book, What to Do with Germany, was written by Louis Nizer, American attorney, orator, and writer. Numerous international statesmen have referred to his book as the Bible for Peace. How well this description is merited was revealed today when from Yalta came word of what the Big Three planned to do with Germany. The 7 main points proclaimed by Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin are the identical 7 points on which Mr. Nizer has written his book. No program, therefore, could be more timely than the one you are about to hear. Our adaptation is a little imaginative, but as you listen, remember this. It is founded on fact.
Yes, listeners, incredible as it may seem, this is the fact afforded by fancy. This is America, and these are slaves you hear. Worker slaves returning from factory to home, marching in close formation under the hawk's eye, the watchful stormtrooper.
Say, what's happened?
What kind of America is this?
Yeah, what's going on?
Patience, friends. Here comes the answer to your questions now. One of the denim-clad marchers drops from the formation to enter his home. Let's follow him.
Dad? Are you home?
Yes, son. Here I am.
Oh, I didn't see you sitting there in the dark. Why the blackout?
I was just thinking here. It always seems easier in the dark. You can put the light on.
There. Gee, you look tired, Dad. What have you been thinking about?
What is there to think about? The past, of course. Always the past.
Yeah. Well, Sunday again. Here are the food vouchers for the week. And look, Dad, look what I got for my birthday bonus. A voucher for a new pair of shoes.
That's nice. And I too have a present for my son on his 14th birthday. All week I've been wondering what to give you, and finally I decided it should be the thing I cherish most. Something I've been saving for a long, long time. It's in that little package on the table.
Oh, Dad, you didn't have to.
Now open it.
Well, thanks, Dad, but I really didn't expect... Why, it's a statue. A little statue. Souvenir of New York. Well, this is swell, Dad, but what is it?
Just a cheap little souvenir, son. But I've kept it for many years, and it's been very dear to me.
What's that she's holding in her hand?
A torch. The torch of liberty. And that's the Statue of Liberty. Of course, you don't know what that is, because it was destroyed before you were born.
Oh, before we were slaves, you mean?
Yes. Before Germany ruled the world, it was a symbol of freedom everywhere. You will always keep this little gift of mine, eh? Even if you keep it hidden. Keep it especially in your heart.
Of course, Dad. Sure I will. The Statue of Liberty. Gosh, I'm always learning something new from you, Dad. The other fellas don't know about any of those things. The things you told me. About the Constitution and the way it used to be before the Germans came. And the presidents and the elections and all that. Remember what you told me about world wars? They wouldn't even believe me. You know what one of them said?
What?
If the whole world beat Germany in the First and Second World War, how could she get big enough to beat all the other countries in the third one?
And what did you tell him?
Well, I guess I really didn't know what to say. You didn't tell me about that. How did it happen?
I suppose you might say it happened because the nations of the world had proud hearts and poor memories. It's one of the most tragic stories the world has ever known. And maybe this would be a good time to tell you about it. It's been running through my mind all day.
Well, what happened after the First World War? Start there.
All right. That ended way back in 1918 with an Allied victory. Germany was crushed completely, hungry, poverty-stricken. But would you believe it? Within 20 years, Germany had grown again to be the strongest military power in the world.
But how? How could they do it? Why did the Allies let them?
Well, that, my son, that's the first chapter of this tragic story. It's a story of pride and deception, of generosity and guile. After the armistice in 1918, all those who had suffered from Germany's ruthlessness counted her crimes and demanded that she be punished.
It was the unanimous report of the Peace Commission that we have found evidences of cruel and barbaric German practices. The murder of wounded soldiers, the massacre of civilians, the poisoning of wells, pillage, torture, these and other violations of international law are among the most striking list of crimes that has ever been drawn up. They are so vouched for that they admit of no doubt. They cry out for justice.
Yes, Germany's guilt was well established, and the Allies prepared to try the guilty individuals. But the Germans set to work with deceit and lies and threats, with red tape and clever intrigue. It was a farce, a comic opera. From a list of 10,000 war criminals, in the end, only 4 persons were actually convicted. They were tried in a German court, and they escaped scot-free. The peace treaty also prescribed punishments for the German nation as a whole. The Germans were to pay for the ruin and destruction they had caused. Their army was to be reduced, and they were forbidden to manufacture munitions. For a long time, the world believed that these punishments were actually being carried out. But all the while, this was what was going on inside Germany.
Don't worry about it, Herr Kraus. When the time comes, Germany will be ready.
After what the Allies have done to us, they're not allowed to have more than 100,000 soldiers, no munitions, no planes. How? How will Germany be ready?
Herr Kraus, you are as blind as a tourist. Let me ask you, what does your factory make?
Lipstick cases, you know that.
Exactly. Well, have you no imagination? What is very much like a lipstick container? A cartridge case, yes?
Oh.
And look, what do you do 3 nights a week and all day Sunday?
You mean the glider club meeting?
Yes. Do you think we've got so many thousands of glider clubs just for the fun of it?
Now, there, I've always seen a good point. A little more training and your glider pilot becomes an excellent fighter pilot.
Well, there you are. And what about the hiking clubs,
Yeah.
the rifle teams, the gyms?
Yeah.
You see? Everyone is getting ready. Every German is training day by day.
Of course. How stupid of me.
Not stupid, just a little nearsighted, like the Allies.
So you see, after the First World War, the Germans were not punished, and they were not disarmed. And when Der Tag came again for the German people, they were very well prepared indeed. That was 20 years later, in 1939, World War II. Again, Germany stood against the nations of the world, and again she broke every rule of international law. But this time, it was even more horrible than the first.
As you ordered, Colonel, the entire population of the village is lined up here.
Good. These French dogs. They will learn that we mean business. Very well, Lieutenant. Give the order.
Well, fire! American paratroopers, Colonel. 14 of them.
We can no longer afford to take prisoners, Lieutenant. Interrogate these Americans. After that, have them all shot.
But, Dad, did the Allies let them get away with it?
Well, they said they wouldn't. The leaders of the United Nations, President Roosevelt, Prime Minister Churchill, and Premier Stalin, issued a declaration.
The German officers and men and members of the Nazi Party who have been responsible for the above atrocities, massacres, and executions will be punished according to the laws of the countries in which their abominable deeds were done. Most assuredly, the Allied powers will pursue them to the ends of the earth and will deliver them to their accusers.
And while their guilt was being proclaimed throughout the world, while defeat grew nearer and nearer, the German government again laid its plans.
Commander, the prisoner Hans Geister is here.
All right, send him in. Send him in. Heil Hitler. Heil Hitler. Sit down, prisoner Geister.
Thank you, Commander. Is the time up?
I'm happy to tell you that it is. You have been here 6 months to the day.
At last. I must congratulate you on the administration of your concentration camp, Commander. It seems more like 6 years since I was interned.
Geister, believe me when I say I realize how courageous you have been. You have done your duty to the Fuhrer as well as any soldier in battle.
Thank you.
Perhaps better. By committing yourself to this concentration camp, you have established yourself as a safe German. Not only on our records, but in the eyes of the real anti-Nazis and eventually in the eyes of the United Nations. You and the others like you will be invaluable to the fatherland when we are defeated. Germany's destiny will be in your hands.
How did it end, Dad? Did the German trick work?
Easy, son, easy. First, I want to tell you about the hidden money. You see, in World War II, the Germans had stolen billions and billions of dollars from occupied Europe. In the preparation for the defeat, all of this fabulous plunder had to be safeguarded.
Good morning, Senor Valente. Draft or deposit?
Good morning, senor. Another deposit. Here.
200,000 pesos. Oh, excuse me, senor.
Perfectly all right. It is a sizable amount.
Por Dios, it certainly is. I think your company is doing very nicely, no?
Well, it's no secret, senor. We are doing very well indeed.
Valente. Back from the bank already?
See, here is the deposit book, Senor Mitchell.
Thank you, Valente. 145 million pesos. That has a very nice sound, eh?
If I might make a suggestion, I think the deposits are too big.
Huh?
The clerk in the bank was completely overwhelmed.
So, I do not like that.
Argentina is overrun with secret agents.
The clerk indulges in some harmless conversation, and the next thing, he's being pumped by an enemy spy.
Exactly. And if our enemies find out how much we are banking here...
Please. Do not even mention it. After all the care we have taken here in Argentina, it would be monstrous if we should fail our leader now.
Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler.
As Germany's defeat drew nearer, she spurred her plans for survival. American intelligence officers discovered secret orders signed by the German General Staff.
Every German officer has the duty of saving himself. It is absolutely necessary to save the officers' corps for the reconstruction of the fatherland. Twice Germany has been rebuilt for the world struggle, and each time we have come nearer to success. Officers, prepare yourselves for the third attempt with fresh energy, and then our victory will be assured.
You see, son? Even with defeat staring them in the face, the Germans planned their third aggression against the world.
But wait a minute, Dad. The Allies knew about these plans. How could Germany fool the world again, if they knew?
When you hear these facts of history, I can see why the democratic nations must seem foolish to you, son. It seems so simple, doesn't it? But do you know, even as Germany was beginning to crumble the second time, people were still arguing about what to do with it.
After all, you can't hold the German people responsible. They didn't all want Hitler.
Well, they voted for him, didn't they?
Yeah, but they didn't have any choice. Don't you realize that?
Well, then, how do you know? Who can be trusted in Germany? Who would you trust?
I'll tell you who. The German educators, professors, teachers. You know, you can always trust them.
The German educators. What nonsense. 4/5 of them had stayed at their jobs under the Nazis and never made the slightest protest against them.
I'll tell you who you can really rely on. The German underground. You can't argue that they're not against the Nazis.
Say, that's an idea. Sure, the German underground. We certainly ought to be able to trust them.
Yes, that would be something. If you could find the German underground. In novels and stories, yes, you could find them there. The resistance movements in every other country had found ways to get in touch with the outside world. Only the alleged German underground was silent and invisible, known only as a myth. There was no German underground. These endless discussions. The truth of the matter was simple and terrible, but very few were able to see it. This was the truth. World conquest by rape and murder had been bred in the bone of the German people for too many years. Before Hitler the First, there was the Kaiser.
Everything must be put to fire and blood. The throats of men and women, children and the aged must be cut. Not a tree nor a house left standing. With such methods of terror, the war will be finished before 2 months. While if I use humanitarian methods, it may prolong it for years.
And before the Kaiser, there was Bismarck, and Frederick the Great before him, all imbued with Germany's manifest destiny to rule the world, all contributors to the religion of war and mass murder. In the writings of their philosophers, the cult of hate was also revealed. Heinrich von Treitschke was one of these. His ideas made him a national hero.
Germany must make it a duty to employ enemy traitors in the enemy state. Every good German is a potential spy. Treaties? Treaties must be denounced by Germany whenever they become unprofitable to her. International law? International law does not exist. The nations of the world cannot be reformed. They can only be overthrown.
The philosophy of war was fed, too, by the words of Friedrich Nietzsche. In 1887, he wrote,
"When the instincts of a society make it give up war and conquest, it is decadent. It is ripe for democracy and the rule of shopkeepers."
Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, one of Germany's greatest men of letters, bowed his head and wrote,
"I have often felt a bitter pang at the thought of the German people, so estimable as individuals, so wretched in the whole."
That was the most profound statement of them all. If the world had understood its meaning, I would not be telling you this story now.
What Goethe said?
Yes. The German people, so estimable as individuals and so wretched in the whole. Pure wisdom. And how stupid and senseless it made all of these arguments and discussions. Could you trust the good Germans? Were there good Germans? How many? What difference did it make? It didn't matter how many good Germans remained. Even if they did exist, they were ineffectual. They had never stopped the German nation from pursuing its heritage. World conquest by brutality and insane barbarism. Deutschland über alles. Rule the world. Rule the world. Good and bad Germans. It was their national theme song, and they loved it. Twice then, my son, these singers of hate and destruction exploded and ravaged the world. Twice they were beaten into submission by the democratic nations. And twice, too, the criminals escaped the punishment due them.
After all that, the Germans weren't punished? After all you just told me? Didn't anyone speak out?
Only a few, my son. And they were like small voices crying in the wind, trying to warn the world. But no one listened. They were men with the vision of history in their hearts, men who had found the courage to be heard, and they asked only one thing of the makers of peace.
Profit from the difficult lesson we have already learned. Only a hard peace will bring a peaceful world.
What do you want to do? Make slaves of the Germans? Is that what you mean?
No. What we advise is just and effective punishment. Punishment that will prevent Germany from making war on the world ever again. Punishment that will change the hearts and the minds of the Germans, too. Change their concept of German destiny and empire.
Uh-huh. And just how do you expect to do that?
By making the peace terms realistic and specific. By planning everything carefully. This time we must avoid the mistakes we made in the First World War so that not a single guilty German escapes punishment. In fact, that's the way the armistice should begin, by declaring them guilty.
But who? Who are the guilty ones?
All those whose crimes are known, who are responsible for the atrocities. Everyone who participated in the Nazi barbarism. The Nazi party leaders, Hitler, Himmler, Goering, Goebbels, Streicher, and the other mass murderers. They must be killed or imprisoned. Every German officer above the rank of colonel. Every member of the Reichstag, killed or imprisoned. The leaders of the Gestapo, the elite guard, the labor and peasant front, killed or imprisoned.
What to do with Germany? These experts divide punishments for the German nation, as well as for individuals. This is what the military expert proposed.
The backbone of Prussian militarism, the German officers' corps, must be completely obliterated. Its survival from the First World War made the Second possible. And in addition to this, the German army itself must be dissolved. There can be no doubt that Germany has forfeited her right to sovereignty. Therefore, she must be completely occupied by the forces of the United Nations.
That's a great idea. But what about the cost? Who's going to pay for it?
You know who. Your kids. They'll be paying for it.
It's just not practical.
On the contrary, this occupation can be carried out by a token force of 300,000 soldiers and a modest air force. All the United Nations will contribute to it. And the cost, believe me, it'll be small indeed compared with the continued peace which will come from it.
And what about the Germans, meanwhile? Don't you think they deserve a place in the sun?
Yes. But first they must learn that others are entitled to at least a freckle.
What to do with Germany after World War II? The expert in economic affairs also had some specific proposals.
If Germany is to be really disarmed, we must go further than the military. She must be disarmed industrially, too. All plants engaged in producing war materials must be demolished. All stockpiles of strategic materials, such as metal, oil, and rubber, must be removed. All industries which made possible the reconstruction of the war machine, metals, chemicals, machine tools, these industries must be completely removed from the German management.
Oh, come on now. Let's give credit where it's due. One thing you'll have to admit is German efficiency. Look at all their scientific discoveries.
Yes, the Germans are efficient and scientific. They can fly in the air like birds. They can swim under the sea like fish. But there's one thing they have never learned to do. Walk the earth like men. No. German industry must be controlled. They cannot be trusted.
What to do with Germany? A great burden fell on the legal expert.
The legal concepts which plagued the peacemakers at Versailles can be wiped out with one stroke. The criminal state may no more demand its freedom than the individual criminal. Germany has already been judged guilty by the nations of the world. For these crimes, her statehood must be destroyed. There will be no peace treaty for her to break, since treaties can only be made between sovereign states. Germany must be put on probation like any criminal, and only after she earns her statehood should a treaty be made.
But won't the Germans resent it? Such harsh treatment, I mean.
I suppose. If a germ, a microbe, could speak, he would call Dr. Pasteur the greatest murderer in history. The Germans have been the scavengers and the scourge of civilization. Does it matter what they think?
What to do with Germany after World War II? For the long pull, the most hopeful contribution to the plan was that of the educator.
Now, one of the worst of the German crimes has been the mental enslavement of its own youth. Look at these slogans pinned up in Nazi schoolrooms.
The final goal, always to be kept in mind in the education of a girl, is that she is one day to become the mother of Germans. Huh?
The 10 Commandments are the deposit of the lowest human instincts. Well, I'll be...
And here is a literal report of a typical history lesson in a Nazi schoolroom.
Fritz, why has God given us the Führer?
To save us.
From what?
From the rest of the world.
Why must we despise Christ?
Because he was weak and gentle.
Why else?
Because he was a Jew.
To wipe out this sacrilege and this pagan idiocy, Germany must be mentally disarmed too. Her educational system scrapped and replaced by democratic teachings and liberal culture. Her educational system should be entrusted to an international university. And when the Germans prove themselves fit to live with, then, and only then, should they be accepted into the family of nations.
So you see, my son, this was the plan of the small voices. Logical, fearless, merciful, correct historically and legally. But alas, these voices were never heeded. That's how Germany came to beat the world in World War III.
I can't believe it, Dad. If only the nations of the world could dictate to Germany now. I guess they wouldn't have to stop and argue about it, would they?
No, son. But that opportunity is long gone and may never return. Buried in the ruins of civilization. Buried with the calendar leaves of 1945 and 1946. And this little statue, my birthday gift to you, the symbol of liberty, has been burned from the minds of a generation, and soon it will be forgotten by men everywhere. Here in our perpetual night, we shall never see again. We look for light, but behold darkness. For brightness, but we walk in gloom. Yea, as those that have no eyes do we grope. We are in the dark places, like the dead.
What's that, Dad?
That's from the Bible, my son. But of course, you don't know what that is. And you will never know. You are a slave of Germany.
Come back now, ladies and gentlemen. Come back to 1945. Our glimpse into the future wasn't very comforting, was it? You may even have found it shocking. Well, then remember this. The nightmare we have shown you need never happen. America and the world need never be enslaved if we follow the advice offered in our fantasy. Remember the lesson. Remove the adder's fangs.
Tonight on Words at War, we've brought you What to Do with Germany by Louis Neisser, a particularly timely book considering the announcement that came out of Yalta today. The radio dramatization was by Edward Jurist. Julian Noah was heard as the father, and Peter Fernandez was his son. The music was arranged and played by William Meader, and the production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Next week, Words at War will present the radio dramatization of Battle Report by Lieutenant Welburn Kelly. This series of programs is brought to you in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime by the National Broadcasting Company and the independent radio stations associated with the NBC network. This is the National Broadcasting Company. Words at War.
I will tell you my story. The story of a lady who died.
Hey, listen to the old lady, fellas. Some gag, huh?
I am the submarine tender USS Canopus, known to my men as the old lady. Or rather, I was the USS Canopus. For now I'm dead. On the day that Bataan fell, on April 9th, 1942, I was proudly sent to the bottom by my own men. Sent to my death. Forever.
Listen, old lady, don't make us laugh. I'm one of your boys. One of the guys who helped send you to the bottom that day off Bataan. I died in a Jap prison camp. When a man dies, nobody can bring him back. But if you think the United States Navy has let you die, listen, old lady, don't make me laugh.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, presents another in the distinguished series Words at War, dramatizing the most important books to come out of the present great world conflict. Tonight we bring to life an excerpt from an outstanding new book written from official sources by two officers of the United States Naval Reserve. The book is Battle Report, Pearl Harbor to Coral Sea, by Commander Walter Carrig and Lieutenant Welburn Kelly. Our dramatization tonight concerns a little-known story of the Navy's part in the heroic but ill-fated battle to defend Bataan and Corregidor. It centers around the gallant submarine tender USS Canopus, the old lady to her men, and that weird but wonderful collection of seagoing land fighters who have now entered our nation's history and legend as the foot sailors of Bataan.
I am the USS Canopus, the old lady to my men, wherever they may be. I lie here now underneath the waters between Maravelis and Corregidor, near the outer entrance to Manila Bay. But even in death, I'm happy. For listen, that's the Navy shelling the Japanese on the coast of Luzon. And listen, that's General MacArthur and his men. They've all come back to the Philippines. They have returned. But I can remember back to the time when the only guns fired in the Philippines were aimed at us, not fired by us. I can remember back to the time when we, my men and I, heard a message broadcast on the day that will live in infamy.
Air raid Pearl Harbor, this is no drill. Air raid Pearl Harbor, this is no drill.
And I can remember, in the days that immediately followed, how the tension mounted among my officers and men. For they soon knew, all of them, that we had been picked out for something special. Nobody would admit it at first, as we watched all the other ships of the Asiatic fleet put out to sea, leaving us behind. But we knew. We knew we had to stay and tend our submarines until the Japs made it too hot for the subs to stay in the Manila area. But the word was passed that we would have to stay and take it, even after our subs were gone. Nobody wanted to believe it. No, they couldn't do that to us. They couldn't.
All right, men. All right, come on. Sweep them down. And bear a hand about it. We may be tied up here in the middle of a wall like a sitting duck. But if we get knocked off, the old lady's going down with our decks clean, see? Oh, good morning, Mr. Goodall.
Good morning, Chief. Nice weather we're having for just a week before Christmas.
Yes, sir, it is. Hot as a fox, though. Not like a week before Christmas back stateside. Oh, Mr. Goodall.
Yes, Chief?
Well, sir, you know, I've been on this tub for a long time. Off and on ever since the Navy took her over from the Grace Line back in 21.
Yes, I know. You're practically a plank owner.
Yes, sir. And I'm pretty proud of the old lady.
I know that, too. She's a happy ship, Chief.
Yes, sir, and always was. Why, I remember when she first joined the fleet. Guys used to try to kid me about a name. They'd say, "Hey, sailor, what ship you off? Are you on that USS Can Opener?"
I know. I guess we've all been kidded about it. And I seem to remember that you've had some arguments about the old lady, Chief.
Well...
Let's see. It seems I heard about one down in Guantanamo.
Well, sir, he spoke with disrespect about the old lady, didn't he, sir? Called her the Can Opener now, didn't he?
I never did hear any details, Chief. As I got it, officially speaking, that is, it was just a friendly discussion between friends. And after the discussion, you volunteered to buy your friend a set of false teeth. Seems he ran into a door or something.
I'm proud of the old lady, sir. That's what I want to talk to you about.
I know, Chief. I'm the executive officer, and everybody thinks I know all the answers. Go ahead.
Oh, well, sir, Mr. Goodall, the war's been going on for 10 days now. Here we are, still tied up in Manila. The old lady's a fighting ship, sir. Her place is at sea, not at a dock in Manila. She should be...
I know, Chief, and I feel the same way. But the skipper's running this ship, Chief. And on the old lady, everybody carries out orders. Understand?
Aye, sir. With your permission, sir, nobody's questioning the old man's orders. We'll all follow him, even if he's headed straight for the bottom of Manila Bay.
Yes, I was the ship, and they were the men. And together we were one. As the days passed, Japan's aviators made it plainer and plainer that Manila and Manila Bay could not be held with the American forces present. The submarines attached to me had to submerge in the bay during daylight hours, coming up only at night. But this couldn't last. We were tied up next to submarine headquarters, and on Christmas Eve the Japs came over and gave us their full attention. The Japs hit sub-headquarters, next to where we were tied up. My decks and side plates were spattered with shrapnel. After it was all over, Commander Sackett, my skipper, sent for Lieutenant Commander Goodall.
Oh, what fun it is to ride on a open sleigh. Oh, jingle bell, jingle all the way.
Sent for me, Captain?
Yes, Hap. Sit down.
Not a very pleasant Christmas Eve, sir.
I'm afraid, Hap, December 24th, 1941 will never linger in my memory as Christmas Eve. I'm glad to see, though, the crew seems to be celebrating.
Yes. I feel I should tell you, sir, that they're all restless about our situation.
Mm-hmm. Damage reports show the ship didn't get hurt too badly today. Few shrapnel holes here and there. No serious casualties, thank God. I called you in, Hap, to tell you to make the ship ready to get underway.
Get under... Captain, that's the best Christmas present the crew could get. They don't mind the Japs, but they want to be out where they can fight back.
But, wait, Hap, wait. I know how the men felt, how you felt. With the war going on, they hated to be tied up doing no fighting on their own.
Not only that, sir, they've seen all the other ships go out. The Houston, the Langley, the Trinity, the Holland, all the destroyers. Why, so we're the only ship of any size left in the Manila area.
I know, Hap, and we've got to stay here.
But, sir, our submarines...
They're leaving us today. After the bombing, they can't stay in Manila.
Naturally, sir, but they'll need a tender to take care of them.
They'll be taken care of by another subtender. We stayed here and cared for them as long as we could. Now it's too late for us to get out.
We could try, sir. The men are all for it.
I know they'd like to make a running fight to get out. No ship's ever had a better crew. But the Japs are in too much force to the south. Besides, we've got another job to do here in the Manila area.
Aye, sir. I'll give the order to prepare the ship for getting underway.
Before you go, Hap, come over here and take a look out this port. Over toward Manila. Rather a fireworks display, isn't it?
Not a pleasant one, sir. That means Manila is now an open city.
Right. The Army's burning all the supplies that couldn't get out.
But, sir, the troops on Bataan...
In a bad way. Not cut off yet, but they'll need all the help they can get. Well, we've still got the Canopus, and I think the old lady might be able to lend a hand. Now we'll find a spot over at the tip of Bataan. Mariveles would be a good place, I should say. We'll hide the ship as best we can.
When we up anchor, sir, the crew will think we're headed out to sea. Shall I tell them?
I think you know how I feel about that, Hap. We're both sailors. We'd rather be out taking our chances with the fleet. Tell the men that if we're ever so ordered, we'll all go out of here together. We'll take the old lady out, and we'll take her out fighting.
My men were happy when they got the word that sometime, maybe sometime, they'd have the chance to take me out to sea, where we felt we all belonged. Meanwhile, we had a job to do, backing up the boys on Bataan. But I think the men knew that they didn't have much of a chance. And I knew. For ships have a feeling about these things, too. We knew all the time, even when we eagerly tuned in for those rosy and optimistic broadcasts that came back from the States, telling us how splendidly we were doing in the Philippines. We all knew, I think, even as my men walked me close ashore near Maravelas Harbor, between Corregidor and the tip of Bataan, and set to work at camouflage to hide me from prying Japanese eyes.
Hey, below there! Hey, Chief!
Yes, I hear you. What is it?
Up here on the bridge, Chief! You see how I've got this green netting strung from the bridge to the smoke pipe?
Yes, I see it. Now string some from the bow down to the bridge and make it artistic-like.
Listen, Chief, the way I'm dressing the old lady up, why, Hattie Carnegie herself couldn't do a better job.
Yeah, you said it, son. Us, a bunch of fighting seamen, and the old lady a fighting ship, and us dressing her up like she was headed for a cheap Saturday night dance. Some war.
Hello, Chief. How's it going?
We're doing the best we can, Captain.
Mr. Goodall tells me you're not happy about it. You think the Japs will spot us, huh?
If they don't, Captain, they're blinder than some folks used to think they were before Pearl Harbor.
Any suggestions?
No, we've done everything we can to hide the old lady, Captain. We used all the netting and green paint we could lay hands on, but, Captain, you see this high cliff right back of us?
Yes, there's nothing we can do about that.
No, sir, there isn't. But you see, if Jap planes fly over Corregidor and then head this way, well, they're bound to see us outlined against the cliff. And that's with camouflage or no camouflage.
Yes, I know. They bombed us a week ago.
Yeah, this time, Captain, I hope we've done a better camouflage job.
You don't sound too optimistic, but I think we'll soon find out, Chief. Mr. Goodall, sound General Quarters.
General Quarters!
Here he comes! Watch out! Watch!
Damage control body needed below power! Fire rescue party! Both deck of men, sir! Wounded men at gun stations, main deck!
All the wounded have been taken to dressing stations set up for shore, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. See that they get every care you can give them. Now, as to the ship.
There are holes all along the side, sir.
There's one big hole through the main deck, sir. One bomb struck the top of the smoke pipe and exploded. All exposed areas were damaged by shrapnel.
The bow is dished in forward, sir, and there are several holes below the waterline. The ship is taking water. It's already a sharp list. She's heeling over on her side. I've started the pumps and repair parties.
Tell the repair parties to seal up every hole that's taking water, Hap. Stop the pumps.
But, sir, the list. We can't take the list off the ship until we pump her out.
I know. Chief, how much work's the Army sending us?
About all we can handle, Captain. Looks like everything they bust up on Bataan, they send it in to us. Gun mechanisms, engines, tank fittings, airplane propellers. Why, yesterday an Army dentist asked us to build some fancy-mouth bridgeway.
And?
Why, Captain, we built it for him, naturally. A man can't fight unless he can eat. And a man can't eat unless he's got a good set of crockery.
Well, as I said, gentlemen, it's obvious we can't hide the Canopus from the Japs. We've tried that and failed. If the Japs bomb us again, our machine shops may be wrecked. And the boys on Bataan need the stuff our shops turn out. Now I have a plan. If it works, the Japs won't bother us again.
What is it, Captain?
What are you going to do, sir?
The Japs may do things that seem strange to us, gentlemen. But even the Japs are not silly enough to drop bombs on a ship that's already been bombed and sunk.
Bombed and sunk? But, Captain, you don't mean...
No, Hap. I don't intend to scuttle the old lady. Of course, my plan may not work, but we've got to try it. Now, let's see. When is the Jap photo reconnaissance plane due over on his regular flight?
Photo Joe from Tokyo?
Yeah.
Let's see. I make it just 2 hours, sir. And he's never more than 5 minutes off.
2 hours. Then we've got to get busy. When Photo Joe comes over again, the old lady's going to look the very way she's probably already been described in Japanese propaganda.
According Japanese Imperial Flight Headquarters, Formosa. Acknowledge.
Japanese Imperial Flight Headquarters, Formosa. You may report, please.
Now flying over U.S. Navy submarine tender Canopus between Corregidor and Mariveles, Manila Bay. Ship is listed over on side. Bad list. Deck is shambles of wreckage. All topside wrecked. Large holes in deck. Smoke pouring from holes. She is no more. U.S. Navy submarine tender Canopus is destroyed to pieces.
Destroyed to pieces. The Japs love that expression. And how many times they've used it to tell their people that our fleet was no more. But I was not destroyed to pieces. I, the USS Canopus, was very much alive.
Men, it worked. How about up there, Chief? Has Photo Joe gone?
Headed straight for Tokyo, Captain. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and lying and bragging all the way.
All right, men. You can put those smudge spots out.
Yes, sir.
I'll leave all the wreckage topside just as it is, and don't do anything to take the list off the ship. If the Japs think we're finished, all the better for us. Maybe we can catch up with our work for the men on Bataan.
Commander Bridget would like to see you, sir.
Bridget? Frank Bridget of Pat Wing 10?
Yes, sir.
But all the Pat Wing 10 planes have gone south with the Navy ships.
Commander Bridget stayed behind, sir, like the Canopus.
Well, show him in.
Yes, sir. Come right in, sir.
Hello, Frank.
Good to see you, Saget.
Good to see you. Well, what goes, Frank? Have the Japs broken our lines on Bataan?
Oh, no, nothing that serious. Yet. Our lines are holding, but that's just about all. They're getting weaker every day. I'm worried about what might happen behind our lines.
What do you mean?
Well, as you know, the Army has stabilized the front on Bataan about 20 miles north of there.
Yes, I do. The machine shops of the Canopus, well, they're humming night and day, forging arms and repairing equipment.
Right. But between here and the Army's lines, well, there's very little to prevent the Japs from landing. And if they do, why, they'll cut off the men on Bataan.
Yes, I see what you mean. Well, Frank, what can be done about it? What can the Canopus do? You've only let us know.
I knew you'd feel that way about it. Well, Admiral Rockwell and General Wainwright have ordered me to form a defense battalion. A sort of, a naval defense battalion. Sort of seagoing land fighters.
But, Frank, where do you get the men? They just don't exist. Every man the Army's got is desperately needed on Corregidor or Bataan.
Well, I've got about 150 sailors, ground crewmen that were left behind when the planes of Pat Wing 10 fought their way south.
Yes, but only 150 men.
Yes, that's only a few, I know. But I've got another 100 sailors that were left with nothing to do when the ammo dump at Cavite was blasted off the map. And, I was hoping for 100 or two from the Canopus.
100 or two? But, Frank, these men are sailors. They've had no training in land tactics.
Ah, but I've thought of that, too. You see, I've got about 100 unassigned Marines. So we'll train our sailors as land fighters. That is, if the Japs will just give us time. Well, how many men do I get from the Canopus?
Leave me short-handed. Well, I'll let you have 130.
Good.
And, Frank, you might pass the word that old Lady Canopus has never yet turned down a call for help. And never will.
That was what all of my men thought of me and felt about me, from the skipper on down. A ship is sensitive about such things. And a ship is a proud ship, only when she and her men are one. But it was amusing to watch my men in training on the drill field they set up ashore. My executive officer, Goodall, was second in command to Commander Bridget. And the chief, he finally broke down and confessed, somewhat ashamed, that he'd once done a hitch in the Army. So they made him a drill master. The sailors only had white uniforms, so they dyed them in coffee grounds. The uniforms came out a bright yellow. But finally, The chief got the sailors whipped into some kind of shape, with the help of the Marines, and they set off on their first extensive maneuvers.
Get in there, step, you swab jockeys. Watch the gyrees do as they do.
They're not doing too badly, Chief.
Oh, I want them to look smart, Mr. Goodall. Of course, they haven't had much training, but what if the Army was to see them in them yellow uniforms, everyone with a different kind of gun? Well, the Army would never stop laughing. Look at them yellow uniforms, a bunch of yellow perils.
Well, the Army on Bataan hasn't got much to laugh about, Chief. Things are looking very grim.
Yeah, I know, Mr. Goodall. Company, halt! At ease. Yeah, but things would be a lot worse for them if the Japs were to decide to land along in here somewhere and cut them off on Bataan from the rear.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen, at least until this outfit learns a little more about land war.
Hey, what?
Chief! Hey, that's light caliber Japanese stuff.
Yeah, we'll soon find out, Mr. Goodall, because here comes an Army coastal lookout, and he's losing no time. Hey, Joe! Stop up a bit, bud. What's that racket up ahead?
The Nips. They've landed. I've got to get the word to Army GHQ.
Yeah, sure. You pass the word along, pal. All right, you swab jockeys and gyrenes. This is what we didn't get a chance to train for. Let's go get 'em!
The foot sailors of Bataan. Someday their full story will be told. A story of 5 days of the weirdest and most unorthodox fighting on record. The Japanese were picked men, well trained in land warfare. They knew that in breaking through the enemy's lines, you first located the position of the enemy's reserves. Then you attacked where the reserves weren't. But of course, that was the joke. The men who had trod my decks, the men from the Canopus, and the other sailors and Marines, they didn't have any reserves. And there were a lot of orthodox rules of land warfare which they didn't know anything about, had never heard. They only knew that their naval textbook said, attack and destroy. On the third day...
Mr. Goodall!
Yes, Chief?
The Japs have infiltrated us. They've sneaked men between our lines. They're behind us.
Why get so excited about it? Do something about it.
Do something? Look, Mr. Goodall, I'm not trying to tell you how to run this war, but I've had some experience in land maneuvers. If the enemy outflanks you or gets behind your lines, you're supposed to retreat. That's one of the rules. I read it in the book.
Never mind the book. Send some men back there and clean out those Japs.
This was strange warfare, and the Japs didn't understand it. This kind of warfare worried the Japs. In fact, one Nipponese officer sat down and wrote of his complete bewilderment.
The Americans are using a new type of suicide squad. They wear bright yellow uniforms. They thrash about and make plenty of noise. When they reach open space, they sit down on a stump and light a cigarette, talking to each other in loud voices. Then, when we move, they shoot. It is very difficult, most difficult, to combat these methods. Such tactics are little short of insane.
The foot sailors not only held the Japs, they began to push them back, never allowing the enemy to do the damage for which he'd been put ashore. At the end of 5 days, the foot sailors, fewer in number, all tired and many wounded, were relieved by the gallant Filipino scouts. The Japs were pushed back into the sea. Perhaps it is yet too early to pass a judgment, but there's a chance, a very good chance, mind you, that the foot sailors and Marines kept Bataan from falling by days and even weeks. But of course, the end was only postponed. We all had known it for some time. And on April 9th, 1942, Commander Sackett called all the officers and men together on my decks. The retreating army was destroying its supplies in Bataan, and the Japs were advancing, ever victorious.
All right, men. This is the end for us and the old lady. We're finished here. I told you earlier today we would be on our own as soon as the army surrendered on Bataan. I told you that because we all know that Corregidor is overcrowded and already on short rations. However, I've just received later word from GHQ on Corregidor. They've decided to take just 2 units. One unit's an army outfit. The other is the naval forces at Mariveles. The officers and men of the USS Canopus.
But the ship, sir, the old lady. Shall we blow her up where she lies?
We will not. The old lady's still got steam in the boilers. She's going out of here under her own power. We'll give her the decent burial she deserves. In deep water. All right, men. A song. A goodbye for the old lady.
Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arms bind the restless wave, who bid the mighty ocean deep in own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the
Well, that's my story. At least, part of my story. I, the submarine tender USS Canopus, known to my men as the Old Lady, I'm dead. Buried beneath the waters between Corregidor and Bataan.
Listen, old lady. This is the chief. I'm dead, see? I died in the Jap prison camp down on Mindanao. But you dead? Don't make me laugh.
Yes, Chief. As I lie here underneath the waters of Manila Bay, I am dead. Dead and gone forever.
Yeah? Well, listen to what it says here in this book. A book called Battle Report. I'll read it. But was this true? Was it true that there would never be another Canopus? Hell no, it was not true, said the Navy Department, although perhaps not officially in these words. The old lady was too good a ship to die. There would be a new Canopus, bigger, faster, stronger. And the gods of the sea being kind, almost as stout-hearted and true as the old lady herself. That's what it says in the book. And I can tell you, old lady, the new Canopus is in the works. The Navy's promise is being kept. The name Canopus will live forever.
Tonight on Words at War, we've brought you a dramatization of excerpts from the book entitled Battle Report by Commander Walter Carrig and Lieutenant Welburn Kelly. The adaptation of his book was written by Lieutenant Kelly, and Miss Ann Seymour was the voice of the Canopus. The music was arranged and played by William Meader, and the production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Next week, Words at War will present the radio dramatization of Faith of Our Fighters by Captain Elwood C. Nance. This series of programs is brought to you in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime by the National Broadcasting Company and the independent radio stations associated with the NBC network. Jack Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company.